Everybody, welcome back to Royal Blu FX. In today's video, we're going to talk about the daily bias, direction, supply and demand, and some other trades we've taken today. So that's 4 things today, so please stay tuned. Also, if you guys aren't aware, our course is at $249 right now. It's the cheapest we've ever sold this course at. This price is only low for this holiday season. The prices will rise after this holiday season, so make sure you buy a course right now to start learning with us today. With this $249 course, we offer everything in this course plus one-on-one sessions from Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Let's go. Yeah, so welcome. All right, let's do this. So in this video, again, we're going to talk about the direction, supply and demand, the trades that we've taken today, and also the bias of the market. Okay, so I'm going to explain these 4 things in this video today. So let's go. All right, so let's start talking about direction. Okay, so a lot of people out there have this hypothesis of just thinking, you know, in order to trade direction, excuse me, in order to trade direction, you need to be looking at either price going bullish or bearish, right? So, which is not entirely wrong. However, the way we trade is supply and demand, which tells us what the direction is, okay? So there's 2 separate things. There's direction and then there's supply and demand. Supply and demand can tell both, okay? Supply and demand can tell both supply and demand and direction, okay? And what I mean by that is, let's start with talking about direction first, okay? So when you're looking at the market, for example, right, you're most likely looking at something like this, right? And you're thinking to yourself, okay, price is bullish and we're looking to buy today, right? Well, what's interesting about this is that it's not entirely wrong because trading with the direction is key, obviously. But in another case, trading supply and demand is also key because supply and demand is how price moves in the markets. And that's essentially to say, for example, let's just talk about this actually. When prices are bullish, you can see that there's a demand going bullish, right? Everything's bullish. The market direction, also this impulse right now is going bullish, right? Let's just say prices are going bearish like this, right? And we get something like this, right? Now, a lot of you may think, okay, prices are still bullish, so we're looking to buy, right? But some other traders may think this is actually a sell. We're looking to sell, right? Because supply and demand is coming intact with each other, right? So in order to buy, obviously you need sellers. In order for us to sell, we need buyers. And what I mean by this is, when there's buyers like this, right, we need price to get back down to a good level, right, 90% of the way, or maybe about, you know, in about that 50 EQ area, right? And when there's supply, there's going to be more buyers coming in, right? So let me just reference this here on the left side here on the live market here, just so I can explain a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the live trades that I've also taken today, which will also help you understand sort of the direction and why we chose to do what we did, or why we traded what we did here. Okay, you can see here, obviously we've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades. Friday, which I believe it was the 22nd. Yes, the Friday the 22nd. So the direction, okay, if I can show you on a 30-minute time frame right here, because I always look at the direction on the higher time frame, okay, and right here, okay. So right here is where US 30 opened today at 6:30, which was right here, right there. Okay, so if I go right here and cut this market off here, 6:30 a.m. Los Angeles time is when the market's open. All right, now if I'm on a 30-minute, a lot of you can probably agree and say, yes, prices are going bullish, which is so true. Everything is going bullish. So that's the direction, right? Second of all, I want to identify where supply and demand has last been placed, okay? So what I mean by this is where supply and demand within this low to this high, from this low to this high, right? When I go down to the lower time frames, let's go down to 3-minute, right? What I start doing, and I start marking where my supply and demand zones are, and I want to have a good grip of and a good understanding of where price is going to bounce off to next, right? So again, like I said, in order for there to be supply, there has to be demand. In order for demand, there has to be supply. So once I mark this out, right, I marked out this demand zone here, right? You can see that there's a supply zone right here, right? And I want to monitor whatever is happening currently in the market, okay, where price is going to go next. And so this is the key here, okay? The key is to find out where price is going to run. So in this instance, if I go down to 1 minute, right, let's just say this is a candle. This is 6:29 right now, right? So I'm waiting right now for the 630 candle to open up. Okay, this is New York open, and this is how I catch a lot of the moves. Okay, so you can see here we had some supply, right, reacting off to more supply on the far left. So we know this is our sell to buy candle, or the sell to buy move, right? So we know that there is demand coming in here, right? And now what we're waiting for is for supply to come down, right? To come to us so we can strike, right? So I wasn't awake for this. I actually was a little late on this trade, but this is the entry that I would have taken right here. So notice how price runs up here. My bias is bullish because we understand that the higher time frame is bullish, but we also understand that supply and demand is also bullish as well. So if you look right here on the far left, let's go all the way on the far left here, you can see that we had some supply react to some more supply, which is right there. We had supply, right? And there were more suppliers that came intact here. Right over here we had sell to buy, right? So when that sell to buy came, right, actually even better, let me see right over here, I want to show you guys something. Actually no, there you go, yeah. So right here, this supply zone here went bearish, right, and price just ran up. Okay, so we know where demand came into place. Demand was actually here, right? So this is where I expected for price to run up, right? But again, like I said, I wasn't here for this entry, although I would have been, and I would have bought here and looked to target somewhere in the highs here. Okay, so watch how price runs, right? Just like that, right? So price just ran so fast, I could have been a part of this. Okay, so again, supply and demand is really key to understanding direction, okay? Because we understood that there right here on the lower time frame there was supply and then demand came into place. We understood that price was still a bullish sentiment, right? We were still biased. The bias was bullish, excuse me. Okay, so once we got up here, we stayed on the 1 minute. Okay, we also went on 30 minutes actually. Let me just show you here, right? And you can see right here, I was waiting for price to come in the 50% EQ right there. As you can see this area, this line posted here, right? And then I understand that this right here, this impulse right here is what's called a breaker block right there. Okay, that's a breaker. So price in here can go bearish from this breaker. However, you can see this, there's a wick that ran above the high here, which means that this breaker has actually been disrespected, but it doesn't mean that price can't run bearish. We want price to run bearish because we want to see a retracement, because you can see here there's an impulse, right? So let's go back down to the 1 minute. So once this happened, okay, watch what happens here. I'm going to fast forward to the trade that I went to, the first trade that I took right over here. Okay, so now if you're looking at this example here, okay, a lot of you may think, okay, well, where is it? Where's price going? Are we going bullish or bearish, right? Sure enough, as you see this here, this is a retracement, right? A lot of you may think, oh, I'm not selling right now. I'm not going to sell at all because there's no setups for me, right? There's not a perfect setup, right? Some of you may think I'm buying, right? Well, let me show you what's happening here. This is where supply and demand comes really important. Okay, watch what happens here. So I'm buying right here. I bought right here on the 5 seconds to be exact, right there. And the reason for that again isn't because the direction is bullish on the higher time frame, but it's because I'm reading supply and demand. You can see here when price came, broke this low here, right? And a lot of other traders are anticipating a new low to be broken like this, right? They're waiting for price from this area here to go down for the break of the structure to go bearish. However, okay, what I understand here is when I see demand right there and more demand, right, I understand that this high needs to be mitigated right there. So this is our next supply zone. This is a low that failed to break that high. When we have a failure demand, we understand that prices should go back into those supply demand areas. Okay, so my theory or my bias, excuse me, on this trade here was rather bullish instead of bearish. Okay, and the reason why again here you'll see was because we have a supply zone that was not yet mitigated right there. We have the lowest of the lows right here with this is a supply zone right there that ran a new low right there, right? We have that famous chalk that everybody likes to talk about, right? Chalk, right? And then there were other traders who entered here. Now, mind you, I didn't enter here, and for a very good reason. That's because, well, we'll talk about this in another video about entries. But this one here is unsafe for me because, you know, what if price actually respected the supply and continued bearish, right? I would have been in a bad zone there. However, we have more sell to buy here. Now, we had more supply come in like this. There was supply and there was bullish momentum right there, which means this is the last supply that has been intact into the market, okay? So once that happens, I immediately tell myself this is a buy. You know, it's a buy and we're going into the supply zone. So I did 3 things. I looked at where the low and the highs are, okay? And what price is doing between this low and this high. And we can see that we had a failure buy here, failure demand. So now we know that this demand here is weak. This demand here is weak, which means we can target this demand based on how price left. You can see how price left. It left some inducement there. That's an inducement, okay? And then now we've reached this low. We've also swept liquidity. That's another thing. And then I saw price switching here. Supply and demand, again, switching from the very low, okay? And now this is where I entered, right? And the rest is history from here. Right there, just about, almost. Let me just fast forward this, boom, there we go. Okay, and so that's it. So once I finished there, I was telling myself, okay, great. Now I'll position myself for a sell. Now, why would I position myself as a sell? We've noticed that on the high here, price hasn't actually mitigated anything. We are running into this like major supply zone area where that breaker is that I've been telling you guys about, right here, okay, right there. You can see that impulse to the downside. Okay, that's a breaker, right? So we have that, this right here, we would span this across and then we would see price, you know, stall here for a little bit. So that's another thing. So once I understood that this is a supply zone here and this is where I'm looking to sell, right? That was my sort of my answer to looking to sell here. A lot of you may think, oh, well, okay, we're probably going bearish because, you know, we did break a chalk here, right? So we had a high in this low break, or it's rather up here, actually, excuse me. It's this high into this low. Prices come back and then they sell off, right? A lot of people would think this is all the way sell down here, right? Anyway, let's go back down to the 1 minute right here. I don't want to get carried off too much. Okay, and so once I got some confirmation here, this demand that failed, this is my confirmation. I sold it here, okay, just like that. I sold it on the 5 seconds, knowing that at minimum I should target this low right here, because now we had another demand that failed to break that high, which means we should be targeting this low, right? This is inducing more buyers into buying higher, and therefore we're targeting this low now because we know at minimum we should target this low. Let's go here. Okay, so let me just show you again, what am I doing here? Why am I selling? Now, this isn't, a lot of traders may not sell here, right? Because this looks a little iffy, a little weird, a little dangerous maybe, right? But then you have other traders who think right here is a buy, right here, because they're thinking they're playing supply and demand the right way, right? So we have a high to a low and then a low to a high. Okay, now this right here is a demand zone, right? I'm not buying here because prices are bearish. We understand that we have demand weak here, therefore we're looking to sell. So let me explain here on this trade right here. Why supply demand so powerful here? Watch this. We're waiting for price to give us some an answer right here, some you know, what do you call it? Some things to to confirm that price is bearish here. You can see here there's an order block, right? But most importantly, we see that we had another failed buy to sell there, which means this is the last order block here that was placed here for this high, right? So again, I'm still selling here, right? Price tapped us in and I'm selling. Okay, you can see that, right? Now, again, you can see other traders in here buying, right? But there's no reason for you to buy here because there's no structure over here. There's no high. There's only a low, right? So what we're looking for is for prices to go bullish to break a new high. And if it does, then you see the change of character, the chalk, right? But instead here, we got price reversing, going bearish. So I sold here, tapping this low at minimum, right? Let's continue here. Okay, you can see here now, I'm looking to sell from this supply supply. We had demand here, right? More traders come in here, and then we had more traders come in here. So there's demand, right? And more demand. Price failed. So we want price to come into the supply zone, right? There's our tap, right? And then we target the rest. Now, would have been awesome to hold this whole thing, but you know, sometimes you never know, right? You want to be in and out of the market, right? So again, we sold there, and then we're done. So now, what do? Let's go back to the 1 minute. Now, with this example, I want to tell you guys that there's so many traders right there, right in this area that were buying, right? Just because they thought, okay, prices are going bullish. Everything is bullish. You can see there's high, lows, highs, lows, right? On a 30 minute, it tells us it's a high, low, right? Low, high, right? And now you have buyers in here where this wick was into play right there that were trying to buy the market, right? But rather, try and switch your brain into thinking supply and demand rather than just being one-sided, right? One-side-minded, or at least thinking, looking at the impulse, if it's bullish, we got to be buying. Look at the impulse on the higher time frame. When it's bearish, we have to be selling, right? Which is not entirely wrong, but it doesn't do you the best, right? It doesn't do you a good to really understand how prices work. In order to understand how price work, you need to understand supply and demand. So let's continue. We are here, right? We're actually looking for price to go all the way down here, but this is what's happening right here. Let's go play it. Okay, I was paying attention to this area very closely right here, and again, you can see that we had a high right here, swept, right? You can see that this supply here failed, price ran up. So again, what am I anticipating? I'm anticipating price to go bullish, right? We broke that high, it swept, right? And then we're looking for price to come back down here. Let me just show you. Right there. Okay, here was the cherry on the top. We see that price, there was some supply here, and there's more supply here. Sold. Price failed. Now I'm waiting for price to get to the 50 for me to enter and buy from there. So I'll show you why. Again, this is really important. Let's go on the 5 seconds. Okay, right there. Okay, let's wait for price to get back. Right, the importance is to wait for price to get back to you. Right, price comes to the 50. Right, we're entering it nicely right there, and then we're just holding it to the next high. Just like that, boom, okay? And that's all we need, right? And the reason for that is because we had this supply zone, which I didn't partake in at all, but I knew this is where I wanted to sell next from here. But you know, you can only be in so many trades, right? When I'm into so many trades in the market, you shouldn't try and take everything that you see, right? So the key importance here is to understand how supply and demand works, more importantly than just seeing the current impulse on the current time frame, right? Let's talk about the daily bias and the bias, the higher time frame bias. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of questions talking about sort of which time frame should I be on, right? Because they're asking me, okay, they're telling me that you're always on a 30-minute, Royal Blu FX, and I'm like, yeah, I am, but which time frame should I be looking at? Honestly, you can look at any time frame as your daily bias. As your bias, directional bias. And the reason why I say that is because everything is perspective based. Again, I want to be very clear. Everything is perspective based. That means that if I am on the 1 minute and I want to look at the 1 minute as my higher time frame, then that is my higher time frame. I have to understand that 1 minute is higher time frame. I'm not going anywhere above, and anywhere below the 1 minute, like the 5 seconds, is my entry. Okay, so I'm going to look at the supply and demand on the 5 second as a supply and demand entry base. Okay, now every order block is supply and demand. Okay, every supply and demand is an order block. A lot of some of my students were asking me, well, what is an order block exactly, right? Well, how do you know which low and which high to actually look for price to come down to, right? It's simply supply and demand. If you look at here, there's a low, there's a high. This whole thing is a demand zone, right? So it only makes sense to highlight this area for price to come into, right? And that is an order block. However, if you go down on the 5 seconds, right, it'll look a little different. Let's go down here, right? Look at that. Right in here on the 5 seconds, you can see right here, there's your last down move or down candle, right? So if you highlighted this and said, okay, well, this is where over refining can become really bad, right? You can say that's my order block, right? But the market hasn't tapped that, right? So this is why I'm always stressing the fact that every supply and demand is an order block. So if you look at here, if I was to partake in this buy here too, notice that there's a supply here as well. Let me see right there. There's supply to demand, right? So this here is your order block, right? It's just a demand zone right there. That's a demand zone. So this demand zone becomes the order block right there. Okay, but we'll talk more about order blocks and so forth and so on other sessions here. I just want you guys to understand that the key to trading just about anything in the market is understanding the supply and demand. And once you understand this, guys, everything is possible. Like you can see the results here. You can see everything here, how everything is possible. You don't have to second guess what is what exactly in the market because it is so easy. Everything keeps showing itself over and over in the markets. Okay, guys. So lastly, let me just touch into supply and demand. Excuse me, not supply and demand, but your bias. Okay, whatever you put your bias as, your your directional bias, right? Whatever you want to keep it as your directional bias, always use that time frame and nothing above. Okay, I use the higher time frame as also supply and demand. So let's say if I go on the 4 hour, maybe even the daily. Let's go on the daily here. Show you guys something here. Okay, let's say we can go on gold here. I was doing some back testing here for other students and stuff. Like right here, we're on a 30-minute right now, right? If you zoom out, okay, notice how price comes into this sell to buy candle right there, right? Notice how that comes in there, right? That's not fully mitigated, but it is mitigated. We'll talk about that in another video. How there's price sometimes comes here fully, closes with a body candle here, and then runs back up. So this can be an inducement in the market. If you look at that line chart like this, notice how price doesn't actually mitigate. We'll talk more about that on another video though, but in any case, if I zoom out right here, right, this is the 30-minute, you can see there's a sell to buy candle there, and here is our next buy, right? Now this whole area is a demand zone. Some of you guys may think, okay, well, where's the order block? Is the order block, do I have to go in here and find the order block exactly? No, not necessarily. You don't need to. You can just highlight it the way it is, just like that, and then look to enter for the buy, right? Not on the higher time frame, obviously, but on the lower time frames to look for confirmations in here. Look at what I did here. Let me just back up here. Okay, notice on the 30-minute that price here is selling, right? We see right here there's your buy and there's your buy to sell right there. You guys can clearly see that buy to sell, right? You can see this wick came and mitigated this area here, this supply zone. Remember, this whole entire area is a supply zone. Okay, not just an order block. It's an order block on the 30-minute. However, it is a supply zone on the lower time frame. You can see here, right? Right. Okay. So let's look at this area. Look at how I highlighted this area here, from this low to this high. This is a supply, right? From this high to this low, that's a supply zone. Supply. So I marked this whole area out. If I did something like this, right? Look at that. Notice how price doesn't actually even come and tag that supply, right? A lot of you may think, oh, well, the market didn't touch my order block or whatever. Maybe you might even think this right here, right there. You might think that's your supply, right? Your order block, excuse me. But in fact, you know, it's not that you're wrong. It's the fact that the way price works, you mark out the last impulsive move to the downside, impulsive move to the upside, or the impulsive move to the downside. So I did from this low to this high, and then that's what I get, right? That's your entry. Look at that, boom, right? It touches you ever so, you know, ever so small over here. You can see that, right? It's like barely taps and goes, right? That would have been that's a 3.25. This is just back testing, obviously. Okay, so there you go, guys. I hope you guys understand the difference between, you know, to understand what supply and demand is, okay, that we only trade and we only follow supply and demand to tell us where the structure, where the direction is, okay? And that's really the key to trading.